Hi, everyone. I am Ross Topolsky with the Vernon Area Public Library, and we are really pleased you're here tonight for Cookie Decorating 101. Let's see, we are using the webinar format tonight, so you should be able to see myself and Lisa Marie. Please put your questions in the chat. We will try to take them as they come in because Lisa Marie is going to be covering a lot of material. There are many different ways to decorate cookies. You might think of only one or two, but Lisa's going to cover a lot of material. So when you have questions, you can feel free to put them in. We are going to do a couple polls first. And first, I'm going to ask you how many people are watching from your device. So if you could take a minute to just answer that, I would appreciate it. Okay, and we're going to end that poll. And then we're going to do another poll that Lisa Marie was kind of wondering about so she could kind of gauge her comments. This poll is, are you an experienced baker? And I guess the options are, do you feel like you're a beginner? Do you feel like you're a novice? Or do you feel like you're advanced? So that might help her kind of customize her comments. And it looks like it's about, we have a few more advanced, but it looks like we have a lot of beginners and novices. So basically, Lisa, you're going to need to cover everything.
Fine. That's absolutely fine.
Okay. And then this our last poll that we're going to do really quickly, just kind of for fun. And that was, I just wanted to know what was your favorite kind of cookie? And you can pick from most of the classics: chocolate chip, sugar cookie, snickerdoodle, shortbread, gingerbread, oatmeal. What's your favorite? And
probably shortbread.
Yeah. So we just thought it'd be kind of fun to just share our thoughts about our favorite cookies. And it looks like chocolate chip is coming in first place.
Yeah, no love for peanut butter.
No love for peanut butter or snickerdoodles. Chocolate chip is doing strong, and followed by shortbread probably. So, okay. Anyhow, that was just kind of some fun, so we could just share a little bit about ourselves. But anyhow, in the meantime, I just want to introduce you to our guest tonight, Lisa Marie Smith. We're really pleased to have Lisa Marie with us today. She is a youth librarian and been with the Vernon Area Library for 33 years, working in the youth department. So she might be a familiar face because if you've come into our library and you've had kids anytime in the last 33 years, she's probably helped you. The reference
you know
desk.
Me, yeah. If you've gone to school in the district in the last 33 years, you know me.
Right, so she's a familiar face, but the thing is, not everybody knows that she's also an avid baker, and she bakes for her coworkers and her family and friends, and everybody kind of knows this about her. And so this is why I asked her to join us tonight. So welcome to our webinar.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. My claim to fame is not much of a claim to fame, but I am 3 times semifinalist in the Chicago Tribune Holiday Cookie Contest. So don't believe that 3 times the charm thing. Nah, I'm out to just prove that. 4th time. So I don't enter every year, and I'm formulating the next cookies. So I always do original recipes too, rather than revamping things, or I have used an old family recipe. So.
Oh, wait, one thing I should mention before Lisa starts is that I did email to everyone today the handout. There were 4 like single page handouts. So you should have gotten a copy from me. If you have not received that, you should let me know. You can send me a message in the chat, private message, and I will send it to you, while we get going. But you should have gotten that today. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, no problem. It's going to be a very fast-paced program. 4 sheets, it's a fast-paced program. So if you don't have them, don't worry. If you don't have them with you, don't worry at all. I'll be going through things, and if you do need anything, Roz will go ahead and make sure you've got the handouts, and my email is on there too. If you have any questions at all, feel free to email me. That's not a problem. Even though I'm in the youth department, I field all cookie recipes. I field all cookie questions. I field all local history questions too, actually. So, but I wanted to go ahead and let you know why I'm doing this. I'm doing this not as a holiday program. I am doing this to let you know that there are ways to decorate cookies that are for year round. cookies get a lot of press around this time of year, but holidays aren't the only time that people want delicious cookies and good looking cookies too. And the way that you learn to decorate them can be carried across the entire, entire year. You can use them for any occasion. Your color scheme might be different, your shapes might be different, but your methods, really, that's what counts. It's the method. And that's what I wanted to go through and highlight a lot of different methods. There are two primary different ways to decorate a cookie. And it seems fairly common sense. You either decorate it before you bake it or you decorate it after you bake it. Now, if you go online and look at the web, when you put in cookie decorating, almost everything you get is royal icing. No, I'm going to mention royal icing here, and I've included a recipe, the recipe that I use from a website called Sally's Baking Addiction, which you may or may not have heard of. It's also, I've included a list of the fourth handout actually is a list of some resources for you. I've included, of course, your craft stores, Michael's Hobby Lobby and Joann's. I've included the Wilton website. Wilton is certainly not the only baking company out there, but they're probably the best known. And they actually are an Illinois company. They're down in Naperville. I've included the website for Ann Clark Cookie Cutters. It's an American-based cookie cutter company that does fabulous decorative cookie cutters. They've got a cookie cutter for every occasion and then some. It's pretty unbelievable the amount of cookie cutters that they have. And they also ship, and they ship really, really quickly. So I've had wonderful experience with them. I've included also two other resources that I use myself. Both of these companies are out east. They're brick and mortar stores, but they also have an online presence. One is called Candyland Crafts, and the other is Confectionery House. Candyland Crafts is a store out in New Jersey, and he actually does a lot of molds and cookie decorating resources and cookie decorating, cookie cutters, sprinkles, sugar. You need your jimmies. These are the places to go. So these are some well-known and reputable places that I can recommend. I'm also including a list of decorating vocabulary, and we'll be talking about the difference between stiff royal icing and flood royal icing. All sorts of different things, primarily with royal icing. But I want to go ahead and get started with the pre-bake decorating. Now I have to say, royal icing, while it's beautiful and gorgeous, and there's so many different cute cookie cutters and so many different things to do after the cookies bake, when you're baking in volume really necessitates you getting the most done efficiently that you can possibly do. And that means most times pre-baking methods. So putting your sprinkles on. Now, I don't know, I didn't have Roz ask, but I brought just a small variety of some of the things I have. Since there's such a wide variety of skill levels, I brought a little bit of everything to talk about some of the things that you can put on your cookie. Now, whether it be a shortbread, whether it be a sugar cookie, a butter cookie, anything like that. And if you're wondering the difference between a sugar cookie and a butter cookie, sugar cookie has more sugar. A butter cookie has less sugar than a sugar cookie, but both are traditionally used in holiday baking. But sprinkles, when you hear sprinkles, it means a whole lot of different things. Sprinkles can mean colored sugars. I've got a couple of different types. They have got the glittery, sparkly sugars. There are black sugars. If you're doing Halloween, you're going to need black. Any color imaginable, any sort of gloss, flat, any of that sort of stuff. you can actually, when you go to the grocery store, you go to the Jewel, you go to the Mariano's, you can find the small bottles like that. You go to the craft stores, you can actually find them in larger quantities. If you go to one of these other stores like Candyland or Confectionery House, you can buy sugar in much larger quantity. I often buy sugar in containers like this. You can get them and they sell them by ounce. Now, this size container was 1 pound and it was $5.19. I can tell you I've had this for over a year, but $5.19 for a pound. So if you're going to be doing a lot of baking and you want particular colors, they have everything under the rainbow. You may want to consider getting buying in volume and using it in your own sprinkling containers. Of course, you can always pinch on as well, but instead of buying all those little bottles, which, you know, $1, $1.50, $1.99, that's fine. But something this size that's going to last, I actually put my, I believe they're called desiccant powders or desiccant, my husband calls them chick rags, they're not really. They come in packages to keep things dry. Sometimes they come in medications. Sometimes they might come in another food product. I actually save mine, throw them in the sugar container, and actually it keeps it from clumping. So that's a tip for you. But colored sugars. How many of you know what a nonpareil is? No, there is not propareil. This is a nonpareil. Nonpareils are those little bit beaded things. Those are also out there. They have jimmies. What's a jimmy? Not just kid, but a jimmy is one of those flat beaded sugared pieces. Confetti. What's confetti? Not just something that you use on New Year's Eve. Confetti actually can be put on sugar cookies, can be put on cakes, can be put on all sorts of different things. Those are the flat round discs. There's any number of different items. They've got, you name the shape, they've got them. I brought some snowflakes here. I've got some stars. I have seen llamas. I have seen flamingos. I have seen palm trees, coconuts, pineapples, you name it. There's a shape for it. Some of the other things that you can also sprinkle on your cookies. Now, these obviously are just going to taste sweet because they are just sugars, but you also have something like this. This is crushed candy cane. So you can buy holiday sprinkles like that instead of crushing up all of those things. Now, of course, you've most likely seen these things probably at the grocery store. They come in multiple packs. And honestly, this is good if you're doing a batch of cookies or only decorate maybe once a year. But if you're going to be doing any sort of baking, this really is nothing but a grab bag gift. These aren't real practical because of the small amount that comes in them. But if you're looking for variety, or like I said, a good gift, there are these as well. Now, you can pick these up. I watch your sales over at the Joann's and other craft stores for $1 a piece or so. So you can get a large variety in a small amount, or if you're going to be doing something in a larger quantity, like I said, you can buy something else. One thing I wanted to warn you about, I don't know if warn you about, educate you, is something like this. Now this says, this is actually from Michael's. This is the Sweet Tooth Fairy brand. This is white and gold sprinkle mix. When you see something like this, think cupcakes, don't think cookies. The larger pieces are more specifically for cupcakes because they're going to hold in the buttercream icing or whatever frosting you put on top. These, not very practical, however beautiful they look, they're not very practical when it comes to cookie decorating. So that's just a quick rundown. Of course, you can use fruit, you can use nuts, you can use dried fruit, any sort of things like that. And that's just the very basic. One easy way to step up your decorating game is by tinting your dough. And I actually have a portion of, this is my butter spritz recipe, and it's good and soft. My butter spritz recipe here in its raw form. This is ready to go into a cookie press and come out into different shapes. It's another way you can level up. But let's say I want to make something a little bit more festive. Yes, maybe I'm doing something like a bow or a candy cane. Yeah, I could sprinkle them. It's a lot of sprinkles. But to get the biggest bang for your buck, what you're going to do is you're going to dye the dough. You're going to actually tint the dough. Now, when I tint my dough, I actually use food coloring, or this is actually food coloring that's gel. There are different kinds of colorings, and I've brought a couple of different ones. I've got your basic gel food coloring. This is gel in a bottle. Wilton sells them in small little bottles like this, where they're foil covered. You take that out. You're wondering, how in the world can I get this out? You use a toothpick to take just a little bit out and put it into your dough. Then you work it in your dough to make it a color. Now, they also have, those crafty people at Wilton, they have a liquid coloring set. Now, a liquid coloring set here comes with a variety, comes actually with 8 different types of food coloring. Now, this, can't hear it, this is liquid, and it comes out squeezing in drops. I'm going to go ahead and move my things, and I will show you in a moment when we do this. Squeeze out the top. They are very nice, and they give you a handy dandy little coloring sheet to give you some basic ideas how many drops of what. We'll go ahead and make different mix and match colors. But when I do my my tinting of the dough, I use AmeriColor. Now, this is a starter kit of AmeriColor food coloring. This is considered a student's kit. They've got 4 different students kits, and you can see they come with 12 different colors, a variety, 4 different sets, 12 different colors in each set, and they come in 0.75 ounce bottles. You can certainly get larger quantities. This is what I did with this particular color. This is called Super Red. Red food coloring is hard to work with because too much red food coloring actually can give your dough an off-putting taste. So AmeriColor red food coloring is what I found to be the best red food coloring out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dye my dough in the bath. If you don't, your hands will turn bright red, as red as this blouse. So you can either use your gloves. I've got gloves. I often do that when I'm baking. Or you can go ahead and just put your dye in the dough here. Now I'm only going to put a little bit in. And you can see I put just a tiny bit in. I'm going to seal it up. And you are going to see what kind of dye color we're going to get on this. It is going to be amazing. So, of course, as you're dyeing your dough, and you can see why I'm saying to go ahead and do it in a plastic bag if at all possible. When you dye your dough, it's going to add a little festive pop. And, oh, I might have to get My dough is a little sticky. I might have to go ahead and get my my gloves on and finish up. I think it will. Go ahead. I use powder-free nitrile gloves. And I do that because I do a lot of baking. When I do baking, and I actually also do cookie trays. When I do my cookie trays and when I'm baking for others, I always use gloves just to be sanitary. So as I'm dyeing this, let's see here, it looks like, oh, hang on here. Roz, I'm gonna have my gloves on. I see maybe a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay,
Would
I
you
can
mind
just,
popping in?
yeah, absolutely. I can ask you a question. This is a good time to take a break.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, I'm knee deep in dough here.
Okay,
So
okay, let's see. Someone would like to know, why do some of the sprinkles and jimmies explode when they are baked? This especially
good
happens during
question.
Christmas.
I've actually had some of that happen myself, as far as some melt and some don't. And it's just, they're all made out of sugar. So higher temperature, longer baking time, it's going to get warmer. And unfortunately, it's just trial and error as far as which ones do the best in your particular recipe. So, and you can see my dough is getting a little pinker. So what I would do is punch a little hole, squeeze a little more in, and you're going to continue on. I said it's messy. You're going to continue on until you get the shade of red that you want. So right now it's coming to cardinal red. So we'll stop there. I won't make you sit through the entire dough tinting process, but I will show you a finished product. Thanks, Ross. I will show you a finished product. And my finished product, I actually made into candy canes. You can see. Da, da, da. This is no coloring other than the dough tinting. So you can see the possibilities of this. I've done this. I've done here, show you what it looks like in green. And yes, talking about the different accessories melting. This little star started to melt. So it's just a matter of trial and error. Sometimes it's the type of dough that it's on. You just never know. But another example of some fruit and some sprinkles on a spritz cookie, and just sprinkles on a spritz cookie. So got a large variety of things.
Lisa, we have a question from someone who liked your candy cane cookie, but she wants to know, how would you make a red and white candy cane? Could you intertwine the two colors to make it look like a candy cane?
Exactly. That's exactly how you would do it. You would just do, you would make it like you would actually make a traditional candy cane, but you would take just roll out a rope of white and roll out a rope of, let's see, roll out, I got another chocolate question. Roll out a rope of red and then intertwine them together. And let's see here. I saw that. When dipping cookies in chocolate, oh, what should you add to make melted chocolate more dippable? Good question, because depending on if you're using candy melts, if you're using bark, there's also different barks and things like that you can use. You can either use coconut oil, and coconut oil will mix very well in your chocolate, or Wilton has got a product that is actually in like a chip form, and almost, I wish I would have thought to bring it. I've got everything else here. It's actually little flakes that you can spoon out by the teaspoonful and mix in. You can use vegetable oil But if you use too much of the vegetable oil, or likewise the cocoa, you'll get a streaky appearance to your chocolate. But coconut oil is a very good one, and the Wilton product, I've seen them called Paramount flakes as well, Paramount chips too. They're basically a way you can thin that chocolate out. Dipping is another good way, and I'll get to that in a little bit, of decorating your cookies.
Lisa, while you're talking about the melting chocolate, someone wants to know if there's a certain brand that you recommend for high quality chocolate for melting.
I myself use a variety, but my favorite, and I would say the best tasting, would be the Ghirardelli chocolate melts. And white chocolate is thinner than, well, it's not real chocolate, I guess, technically, because it doesn't have the cacao bean in it. But white chocolate is thinner when you melt it than milk or dark chocolate. Those actually need to be thin no matter what brand you're using. The Wilton melts work all right as well, but I found the Ghirardelli actually are the best in my experience. Now, beside the dough tinting, of course, you can do shapes. There are cookie presses in a large variety of colors. You can also layer your cookies. Now, you might think this is a little cheating. This is a little pre-baking and post-baking, but pre-baking, go ahead and make sure you can't cut out a center to a cookie before you bake it. So when you put it together, like a Linzer cookie, now this is a little thick for a Linzer, but a Linzer cookie is a sandwich cookie that's covered in powdered sugar, traditionally made with almond flour and has a jam inside. And there are actually different Linzer kits. This is a Linzer kit. It comes with different centers. So when you take it out, you have this, it almost looks like a little biscuit cutter. This does both cookies. The center is removable, so you can bake the outside or the back of the cookie, and this presses and helps release the cookie that you've just cut. You can also insert different cutters in the center. There are different little notches in there. They just slide into place and twist. I've done a heart on this one. They have, in the traditional kit, they've got a star, a heart, flower, diamond, triangle, and a circle. I have seen an Easter kit, and or spring, it was actually a spring kit. And when I went to get it, they were all sold out. But they had different inserts for different types of flowers, daffodils and daisies and things like that. So they do exist for other seasons. Now, when you get your cookies cut out, you bake them on the same tray, the same way. When you assemble them, you're going to put jam in there, and you're going to put jam on the top of the bottom, the top of the lower cookie. Then you're going to put powdered sugar, sprinkle it on the top of the upper cookie, and then you're going to put them together. So this is technically a little pre-baking and a little post-baking, but it's something very easy. You don't necessarily need to do, there's not a lot of prep work involved here. So Linzers are kind of like a combination of the way they do it. And by all means, don't let yourself be constrained by a recipe. If it says you need to use raspberry jam, don't think you have to use raspberry jam. I made Linzer cookies substituting hazelnut flour for the almond flour. And then I made the center, the filling part, Nutella. Oh, were they good. So it was a hazelnut cookie with a Nutella hazelnut center with the powdered sugar in the outside. So all the cookies you see on the handouts are my cookies as well. So I just wanted to mention that. So Linzer's a good way to do a combination and talk about some of the creative ways you can use cookie cutters. Now, window pane cookies are an old-fashioned way of getting some color and some dimension into a cookie. What you'll do is you will take a cookie shape and you're going to cut a hole in it. It can be any shape at all. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on. I see one question. Let's go ahead. What's the best way to store a different flour? You can keep it frozen in the refrigerator in a Ziploc bag is probably the best way for long-term storage. And you can also, I keep mine in Ziploc bags or Rubbermaid containers if you're using quite a bit of it. But let me go ahead and I'm going to share my camera and there you go. Hello, you'll see the remnants of the red dough. So these are nesting cookie cutters. Beside being cute, there are many different types of nesting cookie cutters. They actually are very functional. You can get different sizes, but what I did to make a window pane cookie was I took a large cookie cutter and then I took a smaller cookie cutter. So I cut the shape out, got my exterior, and then I cut an inside shape. What I then did, and you can see it's grown just a little bit. And there is my exterior cookie cutter that didn't grow very much, but you can see it did a little bit. I took that open spot and I added crushed lemon drop candy. Now, if you remember, if you were watching last year, I'm trying to find my candy. If you were, last year I made chocolate with lemon drop candy in it. I took some of those lemon drops and I crushed them up and I took the little shards and I laid them in here. So it's the raw cookie dough on the cookie tray with parchment. And I put it almost looked like cookie powder that I put in there and let it melt. I baked it no special time, just the time required by the cookie. And this one was actually 8 to 10 minutes at 350. Did that, and it came out looking like this. The trick to window pane cookies is not moving them until they're absolutely cool. So you keep them on the tray with the parchment underneath there until they're absolutely cool. And you can see underneath what it looks like. You can see that candy didn't ooze out underneath that dough. It stayed constrained in that cutout. You can do all sorts of things. You can tint your dough. Think of the combinations. You can tint your dough. You can do different colored sugars. You can combine different sugars. That's why they're called window pane cookies. So it's something neat that you can do with any kind of cookie. It can be a round cookie cutter, could be an oval. You might want to put a snowflake in the center and have something like that. You could do another, any basic shape and put inside. What I have not done, but would be adorable, would be, I've got this cuter than cute little house with a gingerbread guy that comes along with. You could put him in his own little house. You could cut out the cookie and then you could get, let's say, a root beer barrel or something like that. Break that candy up with a hammer and put those shards of candy in there.
Lisa, we have one question. Someone would like to know, how much candy do you put there? How do you know when it's full or is enough?
Oh, good question, because I myself haven't had a lot of experience doing window pane cookies. What I did was I just put as much candy as I filled up the hole. I didn't go over it. I made sure that there was no candy on the outside over here. I made sure that the candy was only in the center and it filled in there. Now, I don't think you really have to worry about it having too much, because if you fill it to the top of your outline, your cutout right here, when it melts, it's going to melt together and fill in the spaces. So I think there's very little chance of it running over, just because the nature of it's going from a solid to a liquid and then back to a solid. So you can see that cookie, there's a good, oh gosh, there's a good 1/6 of an inch between the candy and the edge of the cookie. So there's actually, there's still room for more. And I filled it to the top. So you're not going to have a problem. There won't be any overfilling at all. So it's a fun way to do it. It would be good for kids too. Absolutely good for kids. One thing I wanted to show is embossing and cookie pressing. This you may have seen before is a rolling pin with designs in it. They've got all sorts of different things. You can see this has got deer. Let's see. Roz, are you seeing this right side up or upside down?
It is upside down.
Okay. Okay. That's the whole mirroring thing. Let me see if I can figure this out. Okay, how about that?
That is better.
Okay, thanks. So it's a new document camera. There's a learning curve. So, but this will work in shortbreads. This will work in gingerbreads. It just cannot be in a very sticky dough. It has to be a drier dough. You actually roll it out onto you roll the dough out about 1/4 inch, and then you press down. You can then take any regular shape and cut out the area that you would like to bake. So there's a way of doing that. I've got this one, but this isn't the only way to do a cutout. I wanted to show you a way that you can do a cutout for 99 cents. And why do I say 99 cents? Because you can get a glass at the Goodwill for 99 cents. What I actually did was I went and I scoped out the bottoms of glasses at the Goodwill. So I looked at glasses. This is a cordial glass. I looked at little dishes, looked for different designs. I actually found a coaster that has a Christmas tree on it. So all you need to do is, when you do a press cookie, now Nordic Ware is a company that also has a lot of baking pans and presses and things like that. Nordic Ware's cookie presses are very expensive. This is an easy way that you can get your own pressed cookie for next to nothing. Now my dough is a little warmer than it really should be, but you'll see that there's that design. You can dip your glass in water, then some sugar, and press it down. The sugar will stay on, or if you'd like to do something like that, you can always use powdered sugar later. Do it that way. This would be wonderful on a dark colored dough with powdered sugar on it. You can, if you don't like the way it looks, roll it up and do it again. There's all sorts of different things that you can try. So this one would be good. You can see it's a little less, it's a little less complicated than this pattern. But like I said, you don't have to go to the Sur La Table to get really expensive devices. You can use whatever you have around the house. Improvise, by all means, improvise. So this is another way. You do a tinted dough or some sprinkled sugar on there, it would be absolutely beautiful. And you don't have to go and order something on Amazon. You can go down and get a 99-cent glass from the Goodwill and do something like that. So that's another way that you can design before pre-baking. Also, I wanted to do a stencil for you. Let me go ahead and grab my cookies for you. I have got, here we go. I have got just a plain 3-inch round chocolate cookie. I did a little cocoa in my batter, my sugar cookie batter. And you can go to a craft store and you can get one of their pre-made designs in a, yeah, go ahead and bring it over here. You can get a pre-made design from one of their stencils, or if you have a Cricut and the library happens to have a Cricut or a Silhouette machine, a different brand, you can actually make your own. This is actually from an Ellison die. And Ellison die is a die company that a teacher would have. We have it here in Youth Services. So I made my own cutouts. You can use your negative, you can use your positive. So what I'm going to do is do this. Let's see here. We're going to do this here with powdered sugar. Very simple. Any cutout. If you have a doily at home, doilies are paper things that go, or some cloth thing, but in this case, you'd use a paper doily on top of your cookie, and all you would need to do is sprinkle powdered sugar on it. So go ahead and do this very quickly, and you'll see I'm going to do it over and over. Now, the trick here is lifting it up without getting, is lifting it up without ruining the design. Ta-da! So, very easy to do. You can do it, like I said, where it's all around the cookie that way. You can also do it the opposite way. We'll go ahead and do this with the cocoa. Now, I just put the extra pieces of paper on there because I didn't have a large enough piece of paper to cover the entire design on the cookie. But I wanted to get you the idea here. Go ahead and do this, just a little plain cocoa in here, and press it down firmly. Wrong plate for this. Press it down firmly. Take it off. Ta-da! So another easy way that you can stencil without needing a lot of equipment. Level it up. That's all you have to do, level it up. So the last thing that I wanted to show you in pre-baking methods is egg tempera wash. Oh, two things. Egg tempera wash is, this is an egg yolk, and I'm going to add just a touch of water, and I'm going to add some food coloring. Now this is regular McCormick's food coloring that you can get at any grocery store. What you can do is mix it up, and long before oil paintings even existed, artists used this method to create paintings. So you would take your cookie, and with paintbrush, you could, and I've got some I've got some powdered sugar on my cookie, but you would just go ahead and paint the surface of your cookie with a larger brush or a smaller brush, however detailed you want it to be. When you bake the cookie, imagine that this is not a baked cookie. When you do this to the raw cookie, it looks like regular dough and just red on top of it or orange, whatever color happens to be. When it gets baked, this is how it comes out. I don't know if you can see that coloration on there. It is pretty true to form for that. I did blue. I did green, yeah, like my dinosaur. This is an easy way to do it. Kids would absolutely, positively love to decorate cookies this way. And they wouldn't have to worry about, you just get the color on top of the cookie and you bake it according to the recipe of the cookie. And when it comes out, it looks like this, nothing else needed. So you can do this. One last pre-baking method, and I wanted to mention because this is so easy. And I know it was a surprise to me because I really didn't have a lot of experience doing this. I'm thinking, oh, I'm sorry, this is post-baking, I'm sorry. Karo syrup, we're gonna talk about Karo syrup. Well, I might as well jump into post-baking cookies. So since I've already talked about it, what I did was you take post-baking, you take your cookie, that's done already. You can see I got my cocoa everywhere. What you can do is take a little Karo syrup, corn syrup. This is what you're looking at, light corn syrup. All you need to do is to take your cookie and get it totally covered with the syrup, the part that you want to have sprinkles on, that is, I should say. And the sprinkles adhere to the cookie. You wouldn't think this would work, but it does. It is amazing. When the cookie dries, when the cookie totally dries, it will not be at all sticky. And if you think after you've got that sheet of cookies in the oven, oh my gosh, I should have done something more with it, or inspiration strikes you after the fact, you can go ahead and add your sprinkles on after they come out of the oven. You haven't missed your opportunity. You can do that. You can make your gingerbread with your brown sugar if you want. You can make them with any colored house. You can do this, and you can see how it really opens up a world of possibilities for you as far as adding detail and pizzazz to your cookie. Now, while we're on post-baking methods, I'm going to mention a couple quickly. We talked about chocolate. Let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. We talked about chocolate, dipping cookies in chocolate. Absolutely. I wanted to show you one of the cookies that I actually did. This is one that actually was a semifinalist last year. This is this is a vanilla, or pardon me, this is a macadamia shortbread cookie with white and dark chocolate on it. I call it my Mary Mac. And it was in the holiday cookie contest last year as a semifinalist. But you could see just the addition of a little bit of chocolate really brightened up that entire cookie, made it much more interesting. Adding chocolate this way or dipping is another easy way of increasing your cookie attractiveness. Oh, let's see, powdered sugar. We talked about powdered sugar before, powdered sugar before, powdered sugar after. We talked about Oh, food safe markers. I wanted to mention food safe markers. If you have a cookie that you would like to decorate, and let's say you have got a very fine detail that you want to put on it, there are, I'm looking for my food safe markers. There are food safe markers that you can draw designs on. They do not taste like anything. They come in a variety of colors. I've got red, black, blue, and brown. They're good for putting eyes on different figures. They're good for even if you're going to be drawing designs on cookies. You can certainly do that as well. Let's see.
Lisa, we have a
Fondant.
question. Lisa, we have a
Yes, go ahead.
question.
Yes.
And Sharon would like to know, is food glitter safe? She's read that some food safe decorations are actually toxic.
I have not used food glitter myself. Food, I have seen it, but I have not used it, so I really don't know. But I would say, I mean, if it's a product that has come out, I am certain that it has had to go through some sort of a government control and regulation. But as far as further studies and things like that, there might be some things out there that I'm not familiar with. Like in the 70s, there were green dyes and red dyes actually in the 70s contained different things that they found out were carcinogenic. So the food industry had to revamp the way that they did dyes, and they changed the chemical compositions of dyes. But I specifically glitter, I do not know. So you're welcome to contact me, and I can certainly look further into it for you. But you know, there's always new research and things like that. So. But I don't want to say one way or another because I really don't know. So, but that's an excellent question. So let's see. Glaze going down to the bottom of your post baking method. I wanted to get into glazes versus royal icings. Now, a glaze is actually similar to a royal icing, but it's softer. And while I was doing the research for this program, I found lots and lots and lots of recipes. There are people who decorate with buttercream. Now, buttercream generally is very soft and does not harden to the standard of royal icing, where you can take something in royal icing, like this, for example, and press on it, your finger's not going to go through it. Buttercream, you're going to make an indentation. Same thing with glazes. There's another thing called fondant icing. There's all sorts of different recipes, but glazes might be the way that you want to go, but just realize that glazes aren't going to hold up to people pressing on them or indentations. They're going to actually be softer. So I'm only going to mention glazes. I'm not going to talk about them other than that. I didn't give you any recipes for glazes either, because there's a zillion of them out there. But I did want to go ahead and mention royal icing. Now, royal icing is the one type of decorating that most people think of when they hear the term cookie decorating. Royal icing is nothing more than powdered sugar in meringue powder. Meringue powder is a shelf-stable powder that is a substitute for the whites of an egg. Now, when they originally made royal icing, they actually used the raw egg whites whipped into the icing. We have meringue powder these days, which is much safer and a much more shelf stable than using raw egg whites. So when you make meringue, when you make royal icing, and I've included a link to a demonstration on making royal icing. I didn't want to take the time in do it. There are lots of different ways to do it. Some of them take 20, 30 minutes. Some of them, like decorate the recipe I gave you, take 5 to 10. I have found I've done both methods. I've done the really long method. I've done the short method. I have found no difference in my results as far as the durability and working with the icing. Now, talking about royal icing is powdered sugar and meringue powder and water. And when you make it, it is very thick. I'm going to go ahead and switch over so you can see we're talking royal icing now. I'm going to share screen and we're going to go here. Here's some royal icing that I made earlier. Royal icing, when you make it, comes in one color, comes in white. You can add food coloring, and you need to only add gel food coloring when you color royal icing. I have seen people use regular water-based food coloring, but I wouldn't recommend it because the color results just aren't anywhere equal. But you can use any of those other methods that I showed you, the Wilton liquid. You can use any of the gel food colorings. When you make your royal icing, it is going to be thick to begin with. You're going to add a little bit of water at a time according to the recipe. It's going to end up hanging off of, you can see a stiff peak form here. You can see, I'll go ahead and leave that there and hold that up. You're going to customize it to the use that you're intending to use it for. If you want piping icing, if you want piping consistency, you want to be able to take a line of the frosting and you want it to hold its consistency. There's something called flooding icing. Once you have your cookie decorated, you can fill it with a looser consistency icing. And you loosen the consistency by adding a little bit of water at a time. I have got my icing. This is piping consistency icing in a bag, in a disposable piping bag. Now, if you are not going to be using lots of different tips, I would not suggest getting couplers. But if you think you might be using the same frosting for different things, I would suggest getting a tip. Let me go ahead and a coupler rather. Let's see here. Wilton has got a system, and there are other brands as well, that you insert a piece into the bag, comes out, you twist this over the top, and that way you can actually, let me wipe that off here. You can actually take and put your tip right on the top. This goes over and twists. And now comes with a cover as well. And now you are ready to pipe. When you hold your bag, I like to hold it where I'm directing my nozzle here, my tip here, and I'm holding the rest with the back of my hand. I've got these wonderful little clips you can use. These actually, I think, are from Pampered Chef. I got them as a gift. You can use rubber bands, you can use bad ties that they sell, whatever you like. But when you, clean my tip off, when you pipe, you're gonna pipe an outline near the edge of the cookie, a continuous line until you get to the side. What that does is it will provide a dam for the icing in the center. Now you can see my line's not perfect. Don't worry, nobody's going to care if your lines are perfect. You might be the only one that cares. It's not going to matter. What's going to matter is that people are going to appreciate the time that you are taking to do this. Here, I'll do another one here. You can go around. And I suggest, instead of going for all sorts of different fun cutters, which you certainly can, get yourself some basic shapes as well. Get a circle, get a square. There are lots of different things that you can do. A square isn't always a square. A square, this can be a stick of, you can make it a stick of butter. You can make it a ruler. You can use all sorts of different ideas that you can find online. You can make this into a, you can make this into a snowman. You can make the round into a gingerbread man. You will appreciate, if you're a Cubs fan, you will appreciate this. I took this cookie cutter. This cookie cutter is, it's called a bunny butt cookie cutter. They sell it because you're supposed to put like pipe the tail of the rabbit here and the foot of the rabbit here, and they're like you're looking at the rabbit from the bottom. Well, I looked at that and I thought, you know what I could do with that? I made it a Chicago Cub logo. So really don't be constrained with the shape. You can make it anything you want. You can see I piped the outer line. I let it dry a little bit, and then I pipe the center, and I'll go ahead and do that with you right now. So I'm going to go ahead, and this is flooding consistency icing. I've taken my piping icing and I've actually loosened it up teaspoon by teaspoon until it was pliable enough where, think of it as shampoo consistency or consistency of glue. What you want it to do is you want it to flow freely. And we'll go ahead and start going around. All these people who do this for a living do it every single day, multiple times a day. You and I are not professional bakers. So what we are going to be doing is you're going to do the best that you can. And as you do more of these, you're going to get better at them and better at them. You'll find a toothpick is a baker's best friend. And I say a toothpick because you'll need a toothpick, or the official word is a scribe. This is a very pointy thing to fill in those extra spots. So you can either shake your cookie, making sure that it fills in. You could see that it's just needs a little bit of assistance. If there's a spot that you think needs more icing, go ahead and put yourself another dot of icing. Don't worry. Right now, it is still loose enough that you can work with it. It takes, I leave my cookies actually overnight out on the table to dry. If you have a cat or a dog, you may, and they do go all over the house, at your house, you may want to invest in a little screen that they have like for patios. Oops, I just put my finger in it. There you go. that keeps the flies off of your dinner plate. So you kind of like almost like a dome. That's you can do that, and that would keep the pet hair out of your cookies that way. And you
So
can
we have
see,
a question,
yes.
and someone would like to know how much time do you have to move the icing or to fix it before it starts to harden?
Oh gosh, you probably have a good 2-3 minutes. So, yeah, it's not like, the clock is ticking. No. And you can see as it's sitting here, I've got air bubbles coming up on my air bubbles coming up. Now it's been sitting here for a little bit. I kind of just give a little swirl to try to get that surface to relax over there. Now, I tend to wait a little bit longer than this between piping and between outlining rather and flooding, but for today's purposes, we're going to do this. So that way you can actually go ahead and add whatever you want at this point. If you wanted to add sprinkles, if you wanted to add nuts, if you wanted to do a different color, do different designs on here, you can do that as well. After this totally dries, you can go ahead and take one of your stencils and put your stencil over that. And actually think it was real simple, but it's something that you can do once you get icing down. But I would almost call that a cookie decorating 102. But so that's your basic piping and flooding. One thing I wanted to show you before we go, and I know we're already out of time, is the last thing I want to show you is we are going to go ahead and we are going to do a quick dipping with royal icing. Now, when you take your, and we're going to use we're going to use our flooding icing here. We're going to take our flooding icing and just put it over here. You can see how the flooding icing is not constrained. It's not staying in line. It's actually spreading out. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more to it. I'm using my stiff icing and mixing it together. And then I'm going to go ahead and add just a touch of water so we have enough to do this demonstration here. You can see I'm just doing a couple of drops here. But so here you've got your white icing here. Let's say you wanted to do a tie-dye design. You could take, and I'm going to go ahead and just take a little bit of this blue icing that I have here. I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit more. I'm sorry, Roz. I'm going.
It's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay. And I'm going to take some of this. I'm going to go ahead and put it down here. Couple of lines down here. Any way that I want. Then I'm going to take a toothpick or a scribe, kind of swirl it through there. Take any cookie that you want. I actually happen to have a menorah here. Because I wanted to show all of our holiday seasons. So got a menorah. I'm going to put the cookie down, face down. Look, not touching anything in the icing. I'm going to lift it up. And here. And you can see my tie-dyes. We needed a little bit more icing, but you can see, you can go ahead and take your scribe or your toothpick and finish up that design. No flooding icing, or no flooding needed, no outlining, nothing at all. You've got your decorated cookie all together. And when this dries, it's going to dry hard, just like any other royal iced cookie. But this is a way that you can go ahead and be very creative. You can let your kids help, and they can get hands-on in the kitchen with you. And it's a fun activity to do together. It can be very attractive, whatever color that you happen to use together. So,
Lisa, someone wants to know, if you
yes.
add water, should it be at room temperature or warmed before adding to the icing? Is that a factor?
It really, it doesn't. See, now I've seen directions with both methods, so I've done it both ways, and it really has not mattered. So
Could you
as
just
long as
add
it's
like a
not
little,
cold.
could you add just a little bit of food coloring to that royal icing to add it instead of adding other frosting? Could you just add a drop or two of food coloring?
Absolutely, you could. It's just going to be, remember, it's just going to be very bright because your food coloring is concentrated, and that's the only difference. I will tell you that there's only so many cookies you're going to get out of this before the colors all run together, and then you'll have to do that. So that's why it's better to do it in a shallow dish, so you don't actually end up going through so much royal icing. But
someone would like to know, can you add anything to give the frosting some flavor? Is that something you ever do?
Yes, you can. And in the directions I give you, actually, you can use vanilla. You can use any extract that you like. You can use lemon. You can use almond, anything like that. If you do choose to use vanilla, I would suggest only using pure vanilla rather than the clear, because the clear tends to be artificial, and that tends to have more of an artificial taste. But the regular vanilla will tint your icing just a little bit, so it won't be bright white, but it will be it'll be more of an off white. But if you really don't necessarily need to have bright white, then you really won't notice it, not at all. I wanted to show a couple of cookies that I had done just as a demonstration for you all. Comparing a couple of them, comparing the methods. We've got a cardinal done in the egg tempera. Here is a cardinal done with just sugar sprinkles before baking, and here is a cardinal done in royal icing. I'll hold him by his little feet. Done in royal icing, and I put a little bit of sprinkle on there for texture. So you can see that they're quite different between the three of them. So I can, here's your three.
Okay.
But I would say have fun, mix and match. You can add nuts onto your royal icing. You can add sugar sprinkles onto this. I used sprinkles with, this is actually one of the discs that I had from my cookie press. I use that as a stencil. So go ahead and just sky's the limit when it comes to creativity. Here's a cactus that I did. I actually piped the outline, did the filling. I piped over it, and I used little sprinkles, little sugar sprinkles, to kind of get that needle look, you know, the cactus needle look. But all sorts of fun things that you can do.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much, because there were so many different options here. I really think
There
a lot
are,
of people.
I didn't know who my audience was, so I wanted to do a little bit of everything.
No, I think a lot of people think about the frosting, the royal frosting or icing, and that's what they think about. So I thought there were so many really interesting options that you either pre or post that just gave you kind of more flexibility and maybe a little easier. And yeah, so there were just so many great options. So thank you.
Yeah, especially for me, and I'll get the cookies in the oven and then I'll think, you know, I should have done this or should have done that. You know, you still have time. One tip I wanted to give everybody before it's a baking tip, actually. Make sure your cookie trays are room temperature. Never bake on a warm tray. Never bake on a cold tray, because that's going to affect the spread of your cookie. And you can even go so far as to, like I do, I actually take my cookies that I've cut out, throw them in the freezer. I put them on parchment, throw them in the freezer. Then I take them out of the freezer and I put them on a room temperature cookie tray and I put them in the oven that way. Cookies are only a 1/4 inch. Doesn't matter if they've came straight out of the freezer, they're going to bake. But what they're going to do is they're going to hold your shape. So when you want a frog, you're going to get a frog. Your frog is not going to look like a buffalo. So it makes a big difference as far as when you're cooking, you know, when you're baking your cookies.
Lisa, someone would like to know if you can freeze the iced cookies. I would think so.
Yes, you can. Absolutely, you can. I made this actually on Halloween. So you can freeze your cookies. I found that iced cookies, not a problem. But now I have to say, some of the other cookies that I have frozen, that I have frosted, just plain frosting, depending on how long you keep them in the freezer, you might get a little change in colors on the edges because it's just the sugar in there. It's not the sugar in the meringue powder. But
well, Lisa, I hope you see there's some nice comments in the chat. So hopefully you will take a look at them.
oh, how do you freeze them without ruining the icing? Good question. And one last question. You can, well, actually, two things. You actually put this in a like a freezer container, Rubbermaid container, put parchment between them. And when you take them out to thaw, put them on a cookie, like a cookie rack, a cookie cooling rack. That way the air can get all the way around them and it won't get mushy that way. One thing I wanted to mention, you can freeze royal icing. So don't think you got to do it right before you decorate. You can freeze royal icing up to 6 months in the freezer. What you do is you take your royal icing, put it in a freezer bag, get as much air out of it as you possibly can. So you're going to have, let's say, if you've got white frosting in a bag, it's going to be a complete white bag. Freeze it. When you put it in the freezer, keep it flat and thaw it in the refrigerator. Royal icing will keep up to 6 months in the freezer. And if you mix it to fluff it up and it's not quite looking as giving you the consistency, just hit it with the hand mixer. You can always do that.
Okay, good to know. All right. Well, anyhow, Lisa, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It is always so much fun to learn about this craft and your craft and all these different techniques. And
yeah, somebody did make a comment. That is a dreidel. You're right. Did I say menorah? I'm sorry. I know it's a dreidel. I didn't mean to. Sorry. I know it's a dreidel.
No problem. No problem.
So,
and we hope everybody at home just had a fun time and are inspired to make beautiful cookies, either over the holidays or just any time of year. So
absolutely, it's something that you can share with multi generations, and it's something that they're always going to remember. No matter if it's sharing for birthday or holidays, doesn't matter. Together time is always worth it.
That sounds great. So have a good night, everybody. We hope to see you at the library soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody.